I find it quite amazing that I can produce images off a stone. This forgotten medium of lithography is a medium which is absolutely unrivaled in any other form of art. I get a lot of enjoyment from my farm that I live on, but when I'm in here, this is my sanctuary, and this is where I'm most at home. Nothing nicer than drawing on a stone. Neil Wallace, welcome to my studio, my print studio down here at the lovely Separation Creek along the Great Ocean Road. I've been here for many years now and hidden away at my studio producing art.
Thank you very much, Peter. You've been involved in all sorts of printmaking, painting in particular as well. Why have you spent so much of your life involved with stone lithography?
Basically, I started in 1969 when I went to art school. I had the privilege of being taught by arguably the greatest stone lithographer that Australia's ever produced in Jack Courier. He loved getting his hands dirty with ink, and he loved the rollers, and he loved everything about lithography, the presses. I mean, the press that I use is 1860 and still going strong. I just find he's instilled that love of making art. I have refined my process over 50 years, so I've simplified all what you read in books, because I suppose I'm lazy in one way. I didn't want to follow the technical procedures. I'm more of an artist. Lots of my stones have old images on, and we need, first of all, to get rid of this image so that we can make the stone receptive to grease, because the process is the antipathy of grease and water. So Neil, the first thing we do is to wet down the stone, and we have to erase that image. Now the image has got grease down in the stone. Now to do that, we've got carborundum grit, which is engineer's grit, and I generally use a 120 because you don't have to do this for long. Now generally, when we're levigating a stone, there are various ways of doing it. Most people don't have a levigator, and I often used to use a stone, another little stone which we use. Now the general rule of thumb in doing this is that if you do the edges, the middle takes care of itself.
Okay.
So you can see, and I've been doing this for a long time, so it probably looks a bit easier than what it is. I generally spend maybe 5 minutes.
Yep.
So we should have that image and the grease removed from the stone now. It's not necessary.
It's amazing how quickly that has just come back to a beautiful surface. It almost looks like polished marble.
So that's now ready to be sensitized to make it receptive to grease and your drawing. Stone lithography was developed in the 1700s by an Austrian called Alois Senfelder. The story goes that he wanted to reproduce scores of music for his father, who was a musician, and there was nothing around at that time, and he accidentally stumbled on the process of the antipathy of grease and water. He actually, I think in about 1780 or 90, actually drew the musical notes on a stone and reproduced them for the first time.
It's amazing, isn't it, when you think that 1860 was really the Iron Age, the start of the Iron Age in England, the start of the railways going through and iron bridges being built, and there's that machine being used right through to now. So obviously an efficient system of transferring ink from stone to a piece of paper. Oh right, Peter, well we've got the drawing that I've made here to put onto the stone.
Yep, we have what's called a transfer paper. So we place that down, we can tape that down so it won't move while you're drawing.
Okay. So my next stage is now start tracing in another colour so you can see where I've been. So I'm just going to retrace my steps in the red, and I'm doing this so that I know where I've been, I won't miss spots. So I'll peel that back. How does that look there, Peter, to act as a guide?
Yeah, no, that's terrific, Neil. It's very solid. Now, I've just mixed up all sorts of old crayons and touche, and I have a mixture, and it works beautifully. If you would like to use that and use some of the darker areas and just drawing where you've drawn, really, the art of lithography is drawing on stone. You are now doing that. You can draw on paper, but this has a quality, a quite unique quality that really you can't get anywhere else. And because it's a lovely, smooth, hard surface, you can get some lovely marks, you know, especially with pencil, and you really enjoy the drawing aspect.
Well, that's as far as in terms of the drawing, Peter. I've got the touche, the heavy areas, the light areas of touche, the thick, dark pencil, and this number 5 light pencil. So in terms of making this into a print, what do we have to do next?
Okay now. Well, the very first thing we have to do is wait for it to totally dry. It's really important that we don't move any of those areas into the negative areas that we don't want the grease. So the next process is called proofing. So we need to proof this image and turn the drawing into ink.
The whole thing about lithography is there's nothing really quite similar to. I mean, there is a process of drawing on stone and there's a process of drawing on metal. And in commercial world, the metal overtook the stone at the turn of the century, and stone was basically not used anymore for commercial printing. And at the end of the Second World War, there was again another huge resurgence in stone lithography. And some of the greatest artists that we think of today, Miro, Picasso, all that group, Kandinsky, launched into lithography. And if you go to the print workshop in Florence, Il Bisonte, all around the courtyard are all these stones that were being drawn by the famous artists of the 1950s after the terrible period of the Second World War. It was like a rebirth in art through stone.
So Neil's made a drawing in grease basically, and what we have to process now is to turn that drawing into ink. And print it. So we have put a very light etch on that, which was about 4 drops to an ounce of gum, which is a very mild etch because we've got some very sensitive areas here. So we're hoping now that it's been left overnight. We're hoping now to change this drawing and see what grease we have been deposited on the stone. So we have a layer of gum that's protecting the image and the stone. So we have to remove that by just washing it out. Okay, so we have dried that. So the first thing you do is you French chalk it, and that is putting a layer of talc over the image just to make the gum arabic goes nice and smooth over the stone. We have gum arabic now, and we apply it over the stone. Now this is quite essential that we buff it up. It's called just buffing the stone.
Yep.
Little cotton rag, and very lightly but quickly we're rubbing in the gum to the negative areas.
Is that pushing the gum into the stone, into those
yes,
little the valleys of the hills?
Exactly right. Because we have a protective film underneath, I can actually use a solvent now, mineral turpentine, to dissolve all that pigmentation of the grease.
Right.
Fairly dramatic when you do this.
So because we've got that, we've already put that, you push that gum arabic, you pushed in earlier to fill the valley, so we're not going to get some of this black going in. That's what you're saying to me?
Correct. That's how it works now. Yep. So I'm applying now the asphaltum, which is a grease enhancer.
This is very, very greasy.
Extremely greasy.
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
Yes, so as you can see.
Yep, it's all come up. In the early days, I mean, talking 40 years ago, stone lithography was probably taught at every art school, and bit by bit it's decreased and decreased because the technical complexity of the actual process, as the time allocated to it was reduced by the overheads of the art colleges, so it was pushed further and further out of the curriculums, which is very sad because the process offers so much, so much richness.
I've just inked up this nap roller with proofing ink. What we are doing is basically enhancing this image with grease. So we want to deposit as much grease as we can within the stone, and hopefully we've got an image. It takes quite a while for the grease content to build up, but we'll see how we go. I normally just use newsprint or scrap paper, but we're going to go straight to the jugular and use a nice bit of
Nice
paper.
piece of liner sateen.
Yes, it is. And for backing paper, I just use a couple of sheets of, just old proofs or whatever.
This is the proof we've got after the second pull off the stone.
Correct.
Is there any areas we should be worried about here? Is it those tush areas looking okay to you?
It's coming up really nicely. The areas, the scratched, engraved areas that you've scratched through the stone are still evident here. There's no filling in.
No.
So I think we're on track now. I'll take one more proof and it should come right up then.
Okay. Very tight.
Okay, Neil, so this is the
big reveal.
big reveal.
Peel it back. Ah,
Okay.
yes. Yes, this is really coming up now. We're coming up towards the full blacks that
Let's
were in
have
the
a look.
original drawing.
Yeah, well, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Even though, as you can see, that it's not black.
Yeah.
But I can tell that the grease now has been
Stabilised,
there's
isn't it?
stabilised,
Yes.
and it's sufficient grease within the stone. I don't have to do much in the way of fixing it up, the image, and cleaning it up, because it's actually kept all those little incised areas that you've done. You can
Yep.
see those areas that
Yeah.
are quite
Fine, very fine detail.
extremely fine. What we do now is that we dry the image.
Yep.
The next part of the process is that we resin and French chalk it. So this is powdered rosin.
Yep.
Apply just a little bit of it and rub it gently. And what this does is it adheres to the ink. So it's protecting the grease that we've built up from the etch that we're about to apply to the stone. So I've mixed up my etch, about 8 drops of nitric acid to half an ounce of gum, slowly around the outside. As you can see, it's effervescence.
It's fizzing this
It's
time
fizzing,
for the
yeah.
first time.
Yes, it is. So I'm just applying very thinly a layer of etch, rubbing it in. Voila!
And there we have it.
So that's it now. It's ready to process your edition in whatever colour that you wish, Neil.
And what time are we going to leave that etch on?
That can be left minimum a couple of hours.
Yep.
So that's the process in a nutshell.
Yep.
And just to explain that this is just one colour.
Yes.
So if you want multiple colours, you have to do another drawing and then another drawing. So that's where the process is laborious. So every colour, one drawing on the stone. People really, the lay person doesn't know the work that's gone into producing such a work, Can you believe that? That took 12 months, 6 days a week work on. Now, most people wouldn't even had any comprehension of how long, why would it take that long? So we need to preserve this procedure. It is so important. This process has been going on for 200-300 years. It's a process that hasn't changed at all in that time. It's good solids to the brain, it really is. I just find there is nothing that I like better than saying I've started a new litho, and I know I'm in for the highs and lows, because it doesn't always go that right. It sometimes you strike problems and you get a bit annoyed, but then when the final 12 colours appear on an edition, and I only do editions of about 10, small editions. I put them away in the drawer and then I look at them and I think, oh, it's not too bad. And then I go and do the next one. It's a process which I thoroughly enjoy. I thoroughly get a kick out of it, and I couldn't think of anything better to do with my life.
Audio Jungle.